Thank you very much, gentlemen. H2K starting it off right here with the victory against Albus Nox. And before we dive into the actual gameplay of it, let's look at champion select, because this is very different than some of the prioritizations we've seen previously in the quarterfinals from other teams.
Well, I think it's very clear what H2K was trying to do, exploit the weakness that you mentioned beforehand in Smurf, unable to play a tank, put him away from the Poppy, and immediately first rotation to Jace. There was so many different options open, and they just say, actually, they take their time. We want Jace for auto omni. We think that he's going to be able to carry it, and he delivers just that.
I really do think that Poppy Man was extremely intelligent, because I am a super big fan of this, the defensive playstyle Poppy, you know, use Corrupting Potion and you teleport super early on so that you can just wait out that lane, basically, and you don't get this giant Jace that's going to try and smash. Like, anytime you have a game where there's a double kill, jungler and top laner go down that early into the game.
With a wave crashing.
Exactly, with a wave crashing.
Double buff.
That is just the biggest early game lead to the early game team.
Yeah, again, also looking at the draft, Kobe talked a lot about the Caitlyn being very important, remove it from Forgiven, and they obviously did in the first rotation, which I think was smart. I think the reason H2K didn't go for Syndra, which is something we normally would see as a first pick, is because Kira has played Jace against it in the past. So like, we don't want to pick Syndra and let them go Jace in the first rotation as a potential pick into it. We want the Jace ourselves for Odo Amna up in the top lane, so they had to first pick it and then give away some strong picks, honestly. I think ANX's composition was fine until I saw the Bard.
One, we've seen a lot of teams prioritize Olaf very highly over the past few days, but I have to look at this Caitlyn first pick and wonder why Azira didn't come along with it, because the Bard has been underwhelming to me. And when we looked at that bot lane, we were saying a winning bot lane for ANX might be the key, right? Relieve that pressure from a Miracle in terms of the CS advantages that Forgiven can build, and it didn't seem to come together with the Bard pick.
I mean, I'm not really sure why you would not take Desire, honestly. We've seen it work previously in the other sets. Or the Karma as well. Karma has an amazing synergy with the Olaf. Maybe they're not too comfortable on it. I really don't see a reason not to take it here in this matchup, and I think it was a pretty grave mistake. And I kind of see what they're doing. Make sure that you pick a strong bottom lane for ANX so that they can kind of mitigate that advantage. But if you had Desire, you would have been able to get a better lead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I kind of think it goes against that point in a way. Because if you were picking purely for bot lane, you would go Zyra, you would go Nami, Karma, like one of those three picks. Bot is more the playmaker, but he's very 50-50. You're either really good and you carry the game, or you're almost useless, which was the case in this game here. And also with the Olaf, like we talked about Olaf a lot here.
Yeah.
I think you need to pick things that like help him, buff him up, give him movement speed like a Karma. Don't just pick Olaf on his own, because then he doesn't add that much value.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into the picks, you know, and examine them pretty closely, but in the end, a lot of it came down to the plays, especially at the very beginning of the game.
Right.
And that big of a.
I mean, and that's why I wanted to separate the picks and talk about the picks in isolation, because of course, any team composition will look bad when you hand over 2 kills early and then the other team runs away with it. And so with that, let's take a look at Albus Nox, who came in trying to make something happen, but H2K managed to turn it all around and start the snowball. Let's get another look brought to you by Acer.
And this in the top lane, we see Janko's face checking Stayhos, but honestly, once this happens, hello? Yeah, once this happens, this is just going to be a terrible flash from Smurf. Honestly, this was just not a good play, and Auto Omni with a quick reaction, and Janko's is going to just watch around while they lose this. The wave is going to crash. You're going to force out the teleport. You're going to get ahead with that double buff, and once that play happens, there's just no coming back. You actually don't have a window, and you're supposed to build defensive onto the Gnar afterwards, but he goes and builds DPS, which just makes no sense.
I mean, I agree. Definitely. Maybe he was trying to catch up or something in terms of overall damage dealt, but that doesn't really mean anything in this game. Seeing a guy actually flash that wall aggressively, something I almost never see. And also against a guy who had flash
But
still.
he succeeded in doing it.
He did flash the
because
wall.
most people would just fail that flash.
It's true, and then he actually wouldn't have died.
The problem is though, you have to take your small victories and realize that this is not, you know, the play that you want it to be. Even though you would love this to be the play where Olaf catches Lee Sin face checking this and my Gnar is right next to me and we kill this guy for first blood. This is not that play because the Gnar just isn't there. And they tried to force it, you know, taking that extra moment to try and walk down and then go for the flashes. It's just the distance between champions was not
wishful
there.
thinking.
And exactly.
Yeah, and with the wave crashing, CS is so much more important. That experience there, you have to make sure that you can catch that as opposed to leaving that lane completely on a skirmish that you can lose. And if you do, the results are complete tragedy.
Obviously, he had been waiting there for quite some time. He was actually starting to recall, and then the face shake happened. So I think he was looking for a gank first, realized he's not going to get it. Jungler shows up, he goes for it. But technically, he actually wanted to be bottom lane. That's why you picked the Bard, to try and set up ganks against the Zyra. But he went top, it all went wrong, and then everything kind of snowballed.
Right, and this is where we can look at those individual lane matchups and the way that H2K can really push an early game lead forward. Oduamne individually 2,500 gold up at around 15 minutes here. That's breaking his previous record here at Worlds, being the largest deficit, or rather advantage at 15 of 1.8k against Mouse in an earlier game against EDG.
And I really liked his play after the laning phase, being able to roam towards the mid lane, roam bottom, just basically moving around the map, using that mobility from the Jace to just generate pressure and constrict the other parts of the map. We saw them taking the bottom turret and the mid lane turret quite early and aggressively, which is a really good thing. And I think that H2K's macro this game was very crisp, particularly with the way that they push towards mid lane, then move to the side lanes and create pressure that way. And you see that the gold graph here is just a complete nice little curve.
Yeah, and I think it's just so important also to highlight that every single member on this team is performing well enough to actually carry games right now. Oduamne might get the great start together with Jankos, but then Forgiven gets the bot tower, and then Rio takes over late game teamfights. Like, every member has had good performances in different games, and that just gives you so many ways you can both pick and ban, but also play in-game.
That being said, I think the thing that the casters talked about a little bit was skipping steps for H2K after they got this big lead. You can brush it off, but really the big difference between the Korean teams that are absolutely dominating is that they have discipline even in games where they get this far ahead. They don't skip those steps. And you know, H2K, if they're already looking ahead to their next opponent, then you have to not skip these steps, and you have to, you know, get in the practice of, you know, going through those.
I don't think we can ignore the sloppiness for H2K, especially against a team like Albus Nox, because throughout the game, again, we saw this team making stabs back into it. This is what you talked about at the beginning of the day, Crumbs. The aggressiveness of this team is what is going to allow them to take games even when they are behind, because they're not going to let themselves get run over.
I mean, at this point, it's kind of hard to gauge if it's just the way that H2K is, or if it's that Baron blunder, which, to be fair, I do think that the Baron was a little bit of a mistake. Just wait for the Syndra combo to go off, then you can smite it. But they got caught left, right, and center in the top side into the mid lane. It wasn't really making a whole lot of sense. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because they played a good week too, but it's still something to look forward to.
The thing is, we've seen so many games here at Worlds come down to plays around Baron, come down to plays where, yeah, we have vision of the Syndra, but probably not that big of a chance to steal it. But so many games have come down to those, you know, big Baron steals that in a best of 5, those will add up, and that could mean the difference between, you know, getting far.
We need to see an H2K team, though, who's not already thinking about Samsung in the next round, because there's more games to be played here. ANX is definitely not done. Again, I think that the pick and ban phase actually was good. If you remove that mistake up in top lane, we would have a completely different game. Could have been much closer as well. So definitely for H2K, focus on the game right now. Don't make the mistakes in the late game, obviously, and then get your victories.
All right, well, H2K takes game 1, but Albus Nox not about to say die, so stick around because Worlds 2016 continues after the break.
You want me to make a Maokai page, my friend?
Oh my god, I've been waiting for you to say that for so long.
Flashed over, and now Steos is going to get aggressive. Jace takes him down, and now they're going to work on Smurf. Jankos is low. Smurf jumps on his head, but it's not enough as Odo looking for the early double kill. He is going to get it. There's 2.
We win this fight, we win this fight.
Here's the one here comes the Jace. Steos is down. Ryu protobelts himself under the turret. They're looking for Ryu, but they can't get it. Miracle going to get his face crit off. Is not careful. Ryu gets himself a triple. There's the Quadra. Now going to chase it down for the Penta. Liquor it. Don't give it away.
If they want, they have the vision, they see them coming in, they will look to punish the Baron first.
Oh my god, he stole it! Odoamne's gonna take him down, but Miracle stands his ground and slays Odoamne.
All up. I play with CB,
I go all up. Okay, go and mid, you don't need to chase, go and.
But there's the first Nexus for H2K.